Hey guys, Mr. Zern here. Welcome back with another computer science vocab lesson. All right, so we've talked about loop or loops before, and we're going to build on that with some more ideas today. But basically, again, just to review, what is a loop? And a loop is a sequence of instructions that continually repeats until the condition is met. And today, we're going to see how there are two different types of loops. One of them we should be familiar with, and possibly depending on where you are with the app you're building, you're familiar with the other one. But just to kind of give you an idea, the one we started with first was something like this, and this was the random number generator. And this type of loop actually has a name, and it's called a while loop. And basically, it keeps repeating by basically adding a random number to our label until the condition is met. And so, again, looking at this one, the count starts at 0, and let's pretend that we enter 3 in the number integer input text box. That's a mouthful, right? And so you've got basically while the count 0 is less than the number of digits. Let's pretend we put 3 in there. Do this thing, and it runs through and does picks a random number, and then it adds 1 to the count. And so is 1 less than 3? Yes. And so it runs through again, picks another random number, adds another one to the count. We're at 2. Is 2 less than 3? Absolutely. Runs through, adds another random number, and adds another one to the count. And so now we have, is 3 less than 3? No. And so it leaves the loop, and basically it takes this 3-digit random number that was just generated and makes that the secret number. And so that technically is a while loop. All right. So we've kind of gotten into that a little bit, and that continues to execute indefinitely for as long as the condition being evaluated is true. Now, the examples that we've been dealing with so far have all been like some kind of relational, or I should say more like an Aramaic type of thing, where we are measuring some kind of math, like, hey, is this, as long as this number is greater than this number, do this thing. Later, we'll get into some statements like, hey, as long as this thing is true, continue to do this, or as long as this statement is false, do this thing. And so, for example, we'll do a menu ordering app later, and you will ask someone like, as long as more food equals yes, then keep asking them what kind of food do they want. And so it'll be like, hey, do you want a burger? Yes or no? And if they say yes, you're like, great. Do you want any more food? And if they say yes, we ask them again. If they say no, it leaves that. So in that case, it kind of could, go on for as long as that person's willing to order more meals. And so that's a while loop. So it just continues to execute indefinitely as long as the condition being evaluated is true or false, kind of depending on how you're looking at it. Okay, so the next one we get into is this for loop. All right, and so sometimes we don't always know how many times we'd want a loop to run, or even kind of like how is the condition true. And so this plays a big part when we get into lists. And so with the database interview app, we started off by asking 5 questions. So we knew exactly how many questions are on that list. And we did a little bit of coding like, hey, as long as, the question count is less than, 6 or 5 or whatever you were using, it would continue to kind of ask these questions. But what if we don't know how many items are on the list? And it's just like going to the store, like your mom says, hey, could you pick up these 3 things at the store? You're like, yep, no problem, and off you go. And before you get to the store, she texts you and adds another thing to the list. And then she texts you again and adds 2 more things to the list. And the list just keeps growing to the point where you don't know how many items are on the list. You just know you need to buy everything on that list, or your mom's going to be mad at you. And so this plays a big part, again, when we get into database and lists. And so if you haven't already got to, we're going to get to this app where you have people, and it could be really anything, but people picking their favorite flavor of ice cream. So you hand them the app, and it says, "What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?" And they add the name of that flavor. And so, who knows how many flavors of ice cream could be on the list? Could be 2, could be 1. It could be 100. It depends on how many people we ask. But ultimately, when I click print favorite, oh, there we go. That's a tongue twister. Favorite flavors of ice cream. We wanted to print every single item on that list. And so that is where this for loop comes in handy. And if we take a look there, we can see for each item in list. And so we've got kind of defining this little local variable. And typically when we're talking about lists, we kind of refer to each item on the list as an item, but you could call it anything. It could be widgets, it could be X's, it could be, sprogs or sprockets or gear, like whatever whatever, it doesn't matter. Usually, though, people just use the item. Sometimes you'll see I; they'll even abbreviate it shorter down. So for every item in list, in this case, we made a little database, and so initially it just creates a blank database. And this one here has to do with our interview app. So a person's gone through and they've asked and answered all these questions, and all those answers are being stored in the database. And what we're doing here is like, hey, create a new list, but this list is empty. And then we're telling basically like, hey, take the database and basically add all of the items in that database to the list. And then ultimately that list gets printed out, all of it. But that loop will continue to run until every single item on that list gets, taken care of. And again, and it could be different every time. Like, again, going back to the grocery store, you go to the grocery store today and there's 5 items, but you got to buy all 5. And next time you go, your mom needs you to buy 7 things, but again, you got to buy all 7 because otherwise you're going to get in trouble. So it does it for however many items are, in the list there. So we've got a for loop and a while loop. So basically, while the condition is true, it continues to do it indefinitely. And this one does it for every item in the list. All right. So dealing with loops, extremely beneficial for coding, a sequence of instructions that continually repeats until the condition is met. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'll talk to you later.